Prescribed medication, sir.
You got a lot of nerve, honey.
This is the Frankie Boyer Show.
Isn't she fabulous?
It's about getting well.
What do I get?
And staying well. The Frankie Boyer Show. Getting well.
You need to throw up.
Staying well.
Listen.
This is the Frankie Boyer Show.
And welcome back. It's Frankie Boyer, and we now have the author of Identifying and Breaking the Cycle. She is with us today, Saniyyah Mayo, and she has been cultivating a relationship with the written word since she was a child in 5th grade. And you had a poetry assignment, and it changed your whole life?
Yes, it actually did. My 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Meter, had gave us a haiku assignment, and I didn't actually know what it was at that point, and I just fell in love with poetry, and ever since then I've been writing. And when I was a kid, when I would be hurting or happy, I would write a poem out of my emotions. So it actually helped me with my writing skills.
Saniyyah, so at 16, two major events happened in your life. You lost your brother.
Well, I actually lost my brother at 12. He was actually 16.
He was 16, and then the birth of your first child at age 16. Is that true?
Yeah, I had my daughter at 16 with my husband now 14 years. We've been together since we were 13. And, yeah, it just made my life just pretty much I had to grow up very quickly because there's responsibilities that I had to take on that my parents weren't willing to take on, which it wasn't their responsibility, but it actually molded me into the person I am today.
Well, the fact that you're still married is just extraordinary.
Yes, it is. It's been an awesome journey, I must say.
And 3 kids later. So tell us about Identifying and Breaking the Cycle.
Identifying and Breaking the Cycle is a book that talks about cycles within families and relationships. And I wanted to focus on the cycles that aren't really talked about, like alcohol and things like that are, common. But I wanted to talk about the subtle cycles that people overlook and they don't realize that it's actually a cycle and it's unhealthy behavior.
Do you think that alcohol is just so accepted and prevalent in the world today?
Yeah, I do. And so it kind of is something that, because it's so prevalent today, that people don't really take it seriously as an unhealthy cycle. So the cycles that I focus on are like rejection in the home, and people really don't think about those type of things and how it affects a child and their future relationships as they get older.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with a dear friend of mine who lives out of state, and her daughter was diagnosed with a very rare disease, and she's this is a family that smokes a lot of pot together, and I'm horrified that they do this, and it's just their older son and the mother and the father, all of them, the 3 of them, and then this daughter was always on the outskirts who was appalled that they had this kind of behavior. And now, because of her own illness, she's now using medical marijuana. And so I just am horrified to think about this family and the way in which they behave. But unfortunately, this is not the minority. There are a lot of families that have this dysfunction between alcohol and drugs.
Well, the reality of it is, like I talk about in one of my chapters, is as parents today, we always think that, when we tell our kids to do something that they'll automatically do it. And the reality of it is we're on constant watch. We are our children's role models, and the behaviors that we model to them, they will either accept it or reject it. And I think that's very powerful that parents don't understand what you do in front of your kids. So even though you may see the dysfunction in your family and say, you know what, this is unhealthy, a lot of times we get sucked and pulled right back into that same cycle that we are trying to reject.
Yeah. I think you're making a tremendous amount of sense. So do you feel that the cycle, the insidiousness of alcoholism runs in families? Because I do.
Definitely. It definitely does. And I think, like I said, if you drink or smoke or whatever you do and you tell your child, you know what, don't drink because it's going to cause this and that, but then they're watching mommy and daddy do it, it's like you're contradicting what you're saying. So it's more than just telling your kids not to do it. You need to not do it as well.
Right. And I think that there's how do you reach the family though, and when everyone is doing it, how do you get in there and make that change and make that hope, give people that hope?
It's just targeting the individual, because the reality of it is some people, they don't want to change, and then you have some people that they look at their family and they see the different cycles and they're like, you know what, I don't want this. So those are the people that I reach out to, because I was one of those people, like looking at my family and saying, you know what, I don't want this for my kids. I don't want to be a single parent. I don't want to, it's just a lot of things that I looked at my childhood that I said I was not going to do. And because of that, I didn't do it. So when I see people like that, I try to talk to them one-on-one and tell them, when you break away from the dysfunctional patterns within your family, it's not going to be easy because you're going against the norm in your family. So it's going to be hard, but it's going to be well worth it. You have to ask yourself, is this something that I want to continue to be in, and do I want to pass this on to my kids? So it's pros and cons with it.
Yeah, absolutely. What would be the biggest lesson that you could share in your own life from your own experience?
I didn't hear the biggest what?
Lessons that you could share.
The biggest lesson? The biggest lesson that I've learned in my life was, because the dysfunction in my family and was going on, and I seen it, but it was hard to break away because I still wanted that family cohesiveness. I still wanted, and the biggest lesson I learned by keep indulging in that type of behavior, that it was affecting my children, and that I started to see things in my oldest daughter, who is now 16, and she started to act out in certain behaviors, and it was like, I do not want this. So I had to make a change and step up and set boundaries and tell my family, you know what, if you behave like this, if you do these type of things, we will not be at family gatherings.
Oh, good for you. Good for you. It's there's that fine line between how do you give tough love and give the support of the love and know that they need to adhere to your rules.
Well, everyone, I hope everyone loves their family, but the reality of it is, in life, period, we always have to have boundaries. Boundaries are healthy. And if people around you can't respect that, then you still have to set boundaries for yourself. Even when you have children, as a child, you may tell your 2-year-old, don't touch that. You're setting boundaries. You're allowing them, making them aware to know that there are certain things you can't do, just like with your family. There's certain things that you have to make them aware of. You know what? If you want to do that, I'm not going to engage in it. If you do it, that's up to you, but I'm not going to do it.
In your book, Identifying and Breaking the Cycle, you say, to everyone who's contributed to my life some way or another, whether negative or positive, it has shaped me into the person I am today. And you say that I believe there is something to be learned from every situation you undergo. And you say the negative experiences as well. And talk a little bit more about that.
I really believe that. I stand by that. I believe in every situation that you experience, there's always something to be learned. Even if it didn't work out in your favor, even if you weren't happy about the situation, you can always learn. Because I believe as long as you're learning, you're growing. Once you start learning, you're stagnant. So even if it's something that you didn't like, maybe something happened, and just say, you know what, next time I'll take another route. I won't do it that way. But you should always be learning something, because learning is promoting growth.
And not only are you, which is so interesting, you married the father of your daughter, still married, 3 children later, and you went back to school to get a degree.
I did. I wanted to...
You got your bachelor's degree.
Yeah, I wanted to work with at-risk youth. I still have a passion for at-risk youth. And while going to school and interning, and actually I was over my church's youth ministry. I started to see the different patterns within families, and I'm like, okay, this is just not in my family; it's in other families as well. So it made me change my direction, and I actually got my master's in clinical psychology with an emphasis on marriage and family therapy, which I'm gaining hours right now to be a marriage and family therapist to get my license.
How fabulous. What a role model you have been. And what's the best website, and how can people find out more about you and the book?
It's breakingthecyclebook.com.
And Saniyyah, Mayo, thank you so much for being with us today. And what a powerful example you are showing all of us, including your own kids.
Thank you.
Persevering. I mean, it's just a great story. And we will be back in just a moment. This is Frankie Boyer. Stay tuned.